Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Each Nostalgia here, and I've got Abigail with me. She's in a good mood. I figured, hey, let's talk about socialization in MMORPG, shall we? Because there's a lot of discussion going on about this stuff lately, and it's interesting. It's an interesting topic. And now I got a fidget in here, fidget cat. Man, it's a cat morning, I guess. I don't know. They're climbing all over me, purring, going crazy. Guys, I'm trying to get a video done, you know? For those of you who don't know, I have 5 cats. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I didn't expect that. But 3 of them were rescued, and we had to bottle raise them, actually. And then, well, we were going to see if we can get them into a good home, and you know how that goes. You end up falling in love with the little fur balls. But I guess he's just going to be my co-pilot for the day, huh? Good kitty. Anyways. All right, I think I'm going to take it from the top here. I wanted to read this. This video is a mess. I've had to start and stop like 20 times. All right, so this post, not a social MMO. Friend and I leveled to 10. Took us like 20 hours over 3 days. Combat was slow as hell. And trying to form groups with people was an exercise in futility. Well, the combat, I don't want it to be, you know, where you're babysitting cooldowns like crazy. I'm not, that's part of the reason why MMOs started to just, I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it much anymore. I don't like the whole sweating your rotation and min-maxing, you know, everything, and I just like it a little bit more slow-paced. When I went back to EQOA and started playing that, I was reminded of, wow, this is what I really missed. And actually, it started with Monsters and Memories and their stress tests. It took me back and reminded me, yeah, it's not just nostalgia. I like this more relaxed approach. I don't want to have to play something like it's... I'm at the edge of my seat having to sweat every little thing that I do. You know, a high-tier raiding type stuff where you'd get into a raid and you'd get kicked because your DPS wasn't high enough or whatever. I'm not into that anymore. When I was younger, I was more competitive. Now I just want to chill. Games have evolved in the last 20 years, and as former EQ players, we thought this is what we wanted. So this kind of smacks of you think you do, but you don't. Everybody remembers that from Blizzard.
And by the way, you don't want to do that either.
You don't want to do that.
You think you do, but you don't. Remember when you had to like spam cities and say need a tank, need a tank, need a tank during the Burning Crusade days? You don't remember that because now you just push a button that says go to the dungeon.
And would be a return to form, a real fantasy world to get immersed in and meet new friends. And that gets harder. I find that gets harder as you get older. It's just one of those things. You're more opinionated in like your 30s and 40s than you were when you were a teenager or in your 20s. You know, it's different for everybody. Some people, you know, they come right into college and they're like political activists or some shit. But I think most of us when we were younger, we didn't have strong opinions on anything. Me, it was like, you know, left wing, right wing, chicken wing, what I didn't care. And that starts to change. A lot of things are politicized now, and a lot of people have very strong opinions one way or the other. So I think that has done a lot to spoil me personally on wanting to group with people, because I've seen so many instances where people will get into arguments over all sorts of political stuff. And this started with, like, for me personally, Anita Sarkeesian and the whole Gamergate nonsense. You know, Mario is sexist and blah, blah, blah. Before that, I wasn't paying attention to any of that. I was just content to go about my business during the day, do what I had to do, and enjoy my downtime. Nowadays, I think that's changed a little bit. Quite a bit, actually. Instead, this has been the least social MMORPG I've ever played, and we've not had a very good time with the lengths they've gone to make the world feel archaic and unfun. I disagree with the archaic and unfun part. I think the world is fun. One of the problems I have with it, though, is it's a little too small right now for the player base. Everywhere I go, there's people there. Which, you know, that's good. The game's doing well. The servers, as I said in the previous video, they're pretty much packed. So that's good. The real estate for us to get around and not have to fight over camps seems like it's becoming a bit of an issue. There isn't even a map in the game to find your way around. I really wish that they would pin something to the top of the Steam forums to tell people there is a map planned. And it would be nice if they had the map straight out of the gate. And that's one of the problems with early access. You got people complaining about Wild's End a lot. Oh, this place is terrible. I can't believe these 2 races are locked behind this place. It feels like it was just hodgepodge put together real quick. Yeah, that's how it is. It's early access. So there's things that aren't in yet. But I see this constantly. We need a map. We need a map. How come there's no map? There is a map planned. And, a lot of people aren't going to know that until they're told that. So that's, I like to post underneath, oh boy, looking for snacks. Here we go again. There's just a constant battleground between people who want it to be more modernized and people who don't. And there is something to be said about the social aspects of a game like this as you get older. And I think a lot of people who make posts like this, they don't realize that they're not as social as they think they are. At least not as much as they used to be. They remember the old days and how much they loved socializing with people and how they made friends a lot more easier when they were younger. But I think they've also got some rose-tinted goggles on and they forget about all the times where they had a falling out. Or, there was a problem with a guild. In EQOA, I remember changing guilds like 4 times because there was always some sort of drama going on. And something would happen. I remember fighting Dreadnought on my healer, my druid, and the tank was getting pissed at me because he was getting wrecked. And he ended up dying, and him and his wife were like lecturing me from the Spirit Master. They were no longer there. And everybody on the raid is like, he's doing fine. And I ended up tanking it. I face tanked the dang thing without any issues. And it made him look kind of silly, and like half the guild ended up leaving with me. And that wasn't my intention. I wasn't like trying to sow discord or anything. But things like that happen, even back in the day. And it's just a funny story. I'll never forget it. The dude was a paper tank. And I remember months later, he remade the tank and wanted to duel me. And he was like all puffed up about it and insecure because, it hurt his ego for a good while. And half of his guild ended up leaving. When I left, I'm like, F this. Blame the healer. Typical nonsense, right? It's the healer or it's the crowd controller's problem. No, sometimes the tank is just, not very good. And back in those days, if you didn't apply your stats correctly, your character was basically ruined. Later on, we ended up getting where you could do like rehab, the Rose of Renewal or whatever came in, and then you just paid for it. Man, thinking about the old days. Before you could change your character could be completely ruined. And yeah, it was pretty devastating to him. But yeah, there's always been tension and social issues, and I just think they've compounded now as people have gotten older, and people forget about that. They come in thinking, this is going to be awesome. It's going to be everything it was when I was younger. Well, things have changed. And it's not just the genre that's changed. You changed too. There's a lot of validity to that. And people don't like that. I think a lot of us, if we could, we do like the Men in Black thing where, you flash and you forget everything and you can just relive it for the first time again. But that's never going to happen. Another thing to consider is that when you first started playing MMOs back in the day, the internet was still relatively new and socializing with people was awesome. Now it's just whatever. You've done it for so long, it doesn't matter. But I remember when the first chat rooms really started to pop up. I remember sitting in chat rooms for hours and hours. The sun would come up and it was like, it wasn't really doing anything but chatting with people. Hey, where are you from? What are you into? What kind of music do you like? Just socializing with people for the first time was incredibly addicting. If you came from, like the analog age, let's say. If you grew up in like the 70s, 80s, 90s, before internet, all of a sudden now people are gathering in chat rooms and there's all these different chat rooms. You had the heavy metal chat room. You had, let's talk about movies chat room. And I still remember the first time I got into EQOA, I had the feeling like, wow, this is a living chat room. This is a place where everybody can come together and go on an adventure. It's not just a chat room. It's got all of the addictive nature of socializing in a chat room with an awesome world where you can, pick whatever you want to be. In this Tolkien-esque fantasy, it was just incredibly addicting. And that, after a while, that just starts to fade. It just becomes something that you've always done. So it's not as exciting as it once was. A lot of people They ache to go back to that time, but you cannot do it. That's it. You've already lived it. It's gone. And that, it's kind of soul-crushingly depressing when you think about it, because that time came and went, and there's nothing you can do to get that back. And that's part of why I named the channel EQA Nostalgia. The definition of nostalgia, it's like a good thing, but also a pain. It's like it's something that hurts. You know what I mean? It's like that Mad Men clip about the carousel. I might link that for you guys to take a look at if you haven't seen it. But it's that feeling. You know what I mean? Looking back at old family photos and that twinge in your heart that you get knowing that you can never go back to that time. It's gone forever. You know, you can only be 12, 13, 14, whatever, once, and then that's it. So I think a lot of that is really wrapped up in how people feel about why this isn't exactly what they expected it to be. So I think that that goes a long way. There's something to be said for that, for a lot of people. So they'll get into it. And I don't think it's just the game's fault. I really don't. I think that people change, and they're not really certain what they want. They think they want something, and then they're like, not so much anymore. But I crave that thing. I crave it, but I've changed, and I know where they're coming from, even if they don't, right? And it's a complicated issue, man. The human brain is a strange thing. And a lot of people will start to get into something and they realize, man, for like the past 20 years, I've been able to solo without issues. And if you take a look at something like WoW, getting into a group it's pretty simple. You queue for something and less than 5 minutes later, boom, you're in a group. But then that group never speaks to each other. There's pros and cons to that stuff. When I went back to Vanilla WoW, I did a lot of standing around hoping that somebody would invite me. And you get caught into that mindset. Well, I don't really want to put in the effort to find somebody. How come the groups just don't dynamically happen? I don't want to have to run all the way out to the dungeon. I want to be able to hit the finder. Maybe we can just bring the group finder in. We can bring LFG in, and then more quality of life starts to creep in and it starts to change. And before you know it, everybody is sprinting through a dungeon at breakneck speed. They're not talking to each other, and it's what you hated and the reason why you quit in the first place. So you really have to be in the mood, right? If I wanted to go to Blackborough right now in EQOA and I wanted to form a group, and it's a time investment. I have to say to myself, okay, I'm going into this place. It's going to take some time. I have to be willing to roll on loot, which is something a lot of people, I think they forgot about. Rolling on loot, everybody would just get something at the end of a dungeon, and that's just the way it was. And that's nice. It is, and it respects your time more, but at the same time, it's just, I don't know. If you just get a box at the end of the dungeon and you get a random chance to get something cool, it feels nice at first, but it doesn't feel like you really earned it as much. And that's one of the things about these old school games that's awesome. But it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes you're not in the mood for that crap. So I think a lot of people have mixed feelings on what they want. And they think they want it, but they don't, and they do, but they don't, and it's just a bit of a mess. And I think if people are being honest with themselves, that describes a lot of people. Because over the years, you've been spoiled. And you see the benefit to that. But at the same time, you want that to be a longer journey, something that's tougher to do. So yeah, I think a lot of people are conflicted on that. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that, people are much more opinionated. They don't have as much time as they used to. And yeah, it just ends up being a bit of a mess. I just want to read a few comments from this. This guy got banned, which isn't hard to do, by the way. I was banned from here because I bumped a post. And I'm banned till like account wide across Steam until the 22nd of February for bumping a post, which is insane. I bumped one of my videos that I was talking about. It's like, yes, I know. It's so awful that somebody wants their post to be seen. the video they spent time on. Anyways, that's neither here nor there, but it's not hard to get banned, just so people understand that. You do know that the social aspects start with you, right? It isn't a mechanic they put in. It's an activity you choose to partake in. That's fair. That's fair. You know, instead of complaining that we're having trouble finding a group, start your own group. A lot of people don't like to take that initiative. People don't like to lead. A lot of people don't. That's why, you know, tanks are they're harder to find in a lot of games, right? People are more content to be the DPS, and they don't even really want the pressure of having to be the healer, because once again, the finger will be pointed at you a lot of times, and people don't want that pressure. So yeah, a lot of people don't want to lead, and you kind of have to do that, right? If you're really into it, what you're gonna do is you're gonna find one other person, and then you're gonna go out and duo for a little while, and then you'll find another person, either through shouting or on LFG. And shouting is going to be something that somebody was talking about this further down in the thread. Shouting is going to be more effective than just sitting on an LFG list, because people are constantly watching the chat. So if you get in OOC and you start shouting that you're looking for people, you're going to get tells. And then over time, you're going to make friends. And when you log in, those friends are going to be like, hey, what's up? What are we doing today? Like I said, I'm taking this from somebody else who was in the forum. I'm not sure, it's further down somewhere. But yeah, it's, you know, you got to get in there. If you want a group, you can group. There are groups to be had. But like I said, you got to be the one who initiates that sometimes. You can't just sit around on LFG complaining about, oh, there's nobody here, there's nothing to do. That's one of the reasons why I quit EQ way back in about 2007. I remember sitting on LFG, and a lot of people had quit. Most of my friends were gone. They were playing World of Warcraft. At that time, I didn't have a PC. I'm just sitting there with my PS2 thinking, well, I guess it's over now. I look at my friends list, and it's just, you know, that sinking feeling. I know a lot of you are probably in touch with that. You see all of a sudden this once vibrant friends list is just dead. And when that happens for the first time, it's even more devastating, because it's, you know, it's like your first love. All of a sudden, everybody's gone. And I remember sitting in Darver Manor in front of the coach right here, and sitting on LFG thinking to myself, all right, well, I'm out. I'm not renewing my sub. They're not coming out with new content, really. We're never going to get all the things I wanted. And it stinks, because we only ever got Otis as in Plain of Sky, etc. We never got a ton of stuff that, you know, original EverQuest and EverQuest 2 had. But in a weird way, it helped to keep the game more focused on the mainland content and kept it kind of pure. To this day, I still have regrets that I didn't stick with EQOA, and that was on me. I could have started my own groups. I could have, you know, instead of sitting in LFG thinking, all depressed about it, I don't want to have to put in the effort, this thing is over, I could have hung in there, because the game lasted a half a decade longer. It didn't shut down until 2012. People were still doing things, and content did come in. It just, you know, we weren't really getting X packs. So right around the time I started this channel in 2011, I started making plans to come back. I didn't have any of the hardware I needed. You know, I sold my PS2 years ago, or traded it in for like an Xbox 360 or whatever. And I started to make plans to go back to it. And by the time I got to that point, it was announced that it was being sunset. And that's when I joined the effort to save EQOA. I remember Bo Jackson was like spearheading that. He got a lot of people to go back into the game to try to show Sony, hey, we're still here. There's still enough of us to keep the game going. But alas, it didn't work out. But it's funny looking back on those days and all those older videos trying to keep the game afloat. I understand that a lot of people are introverted. I am as well, which might shock some people because I have a YouTube channel. But don't be afraid to grab those reins. Life is passing you by, and nothing lasts forever. Right now, I want to kick it over to you guys. Let me know what you think about this down in the comments section below. Hit the like button, subscribe, click the notification bell, get down in the comments section. It helps with the algorithm. God bless, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.
Nostalgia. It's delicate, but potent.